just a little bit on the work list, like those widgets we saw on the home page. Then I'll talk about the proxy session, and then we'll continue with the hiring process and review. When you guys log into the tenant, right, and you guys log in with a particular user, that user has access associated with it, and that's based on either a security role or a user-based group. But in many cases, they may not have access to all of the HR functionality needed to, set up job profiles or set up switchboards. So I have asked you to always proxy in as Logan McNeil, because Logan McNeil, she's the HR administrator and she has full rights in the system. But that functionality, when you do that, that's called you're entering into a proxy session. And proxy sessions are available in non-cloud productions only. So they're not in production. And when at the time of implementation, or when someone has set up a proxy access policy in place, then you could do proxy access. And there's usually some rules associated with it, such as you cannot proxy as a HR person in real life if someone has set up that rule. Or you could exclude certain people from either being able to join a starting proxy session, like they themselves cannot start proxy, like based on the account. You could say, hey, this group of folks, we don't want them to be able to proxy. Conversely, you could also say that, yes, they could proxy, but they cannot proxy as, some particular user. So you could put some kind of restrictions on this, and that's called a proxy access policy. And when we're in during proxy session, Workday will display on behalf of and the name of the user on whose behalf you're acting in place of your username. As a proxy user, like when you log in or when you proxy as Logan, you could perform any action in Workday that the user on whose behalf you're acting is authorized, excluding certain functionality. So what is that excluded functionality where proxy sessions does not work? So access to documents that are under my report. So when I proxy as Logan or somebody else, if they have any particular documents in there, I will not be able to see them. Or if you do background conversions that are going in the background of the Workday process, I'm really not seeing that on the HR side. But I think like even business form printing, this is probably on the finance side because I have not seen that on the HR side. Email and integration. So you cannot proxy as someone else and then get their email. Even though we're not talking about the Workday inbox or accessing running the integration as someone else, we could definitely do that. Like if within Workday, if I proxy as a finance person, I will have access to their Workday inbox and any integrations that they run. But on the mobile push notifications, they don't work talked about these widgets. Just want to quickly point out that as an end user or whoever, like a true end user, not just HR, everybody will see this gear to configure these applications. So based on the access level they have, you could configure these workloads. The ones that are required, they cannot move them, but the ones that are optional, they could add or remove. But then as the implementer or the Workday consultant, if you have made a particular widget and you want to put something out there, as a new widget for everybody to see, or you want to restrict the access to managers only, you could do that because there is the functionality that controls all of the widgets and the dashboard. So that is called maintain dashboard. Maintain dashboard. So here would be all of the delivered Workday dashboards, and some of them are custom. So you can see there's, on this list of dashboards, there's 198 of them. This column has a dashboard name, and this is whether it's Workday delivered or it's custom. And then you click on edit to modify it. So I'm going to filter this list to go to the home dashboard. And if I click on edit, here under the content tab, I can see the different workloads. So all of the workloads that we saw on the home page, all 25 of them, they're listed here. And their security policy is also listed here. So if someone is an implementer or learning assessor or someone in the learning, they will see this learning trainer widget. All of the contingent workers will see a directory. So based on your role or based on your audience's role, you could set that particular widget. So if I want to say, hey, learning widget, right now it says it's applicable for all learners, but I can definitely change that. And I can say, hey, I only want this to HR admin. And each of the workloads is, it has a security policy in place on who could access that widget. So if you create a report and then you want to set that up as a workload, you could also add reports here. And you could also create new. But at this point, I just want to show how you could, any workload that you create under a different menu, if you want to set that up, or if you want to remove something from the home page or add, this is the navigation to it, and this is where you set the security for it. So this one is, like if you're a manager or an implementer, then you will see the My Team Management widget. So this really helps in tailoring the content based on the type of user or the type of group someone is in. That's under the content. Similarly, you have announcements that we found on the left-hand side. And there's rules on the announcement as well. So you could say like, hey, if the country is UK and they select leave type, then they will see this particular message. So the messaging and the announcements are definitely, it helps to have rules on. You can make rules based on the job family, or you can make rules based on their geographic location, and then you could enter a particular message. So I was talking about that earlier. Let me exit out here and we go back to the home page. This button is for everybody, And this will allow you to change only for yourself. This will not change for others. So this is it's called configure application. And this allows you to personalize for yourself. So if I remove something, it's only going to remove from me as login screen. And so everybody will see that. But the way when you go to maintain dashboard and then like the widgets from there, that's something you're publishing to everybody for their landing page. Personalizing it just for yourself. And then these announcements, they're also configured based on some type of criteria. Today, I will also show you how to set up criteria, like, for our compensation purposes. So that's actually fairly easy to do based on location or job profile or, any other thing that you could use to filter your audience with. When you want to report, like at the time of merit or like some kind of like annual process, you could also put a report over here. It will show up as a widget so that all the managers could access it rather than have to type the name of the report from here. They could access it as a widget. In addition to this thing over here, does it get sent in an email, right? So when I create an announcement, it actually just shows up over here. There's other ways to send notifications to Outlook as well, and that's called like distribution tab. So, I think I'm not 100% clear what you're asking, but yeah, you could create notifications that do go to email. But when setting up a notification like that are showing up over here, this is for display on whichever page or dashboard that you're referring to. Because like this is just one, this is called a home dashboard, but there's others. So by default, when you set up something for that particular page, it won't get displayed only on that page. It won't get automatically sent to your email or to your end user's email. We probably can, but there's also, more importantly, we got to. I was going to show that when we actually create, and then how we set them up as widgets, but you could definitely practice that out. Let me just go back to the screen, to the edit screen, and I'll show you the functionality for it. So go back to maintain dashboards, go down to home. In order for me to do this, the rule has to be created some type of, I'm just going to say test. So last time you create some of these things that are required first, and then I'm just going to put test. It's not going to be very elaborate. By location, by job profile, by any criteria that's available for on the employee profile or company profile, you could do that. So creating that rule would take time, so I'm going to skip that. But I'm sure there's already many rules available in the tenant. So if I say, let me look for something that says United States. Like workers located in U.S. Type the video URL. picture or video with it, but you saw there was capability to do that, and it's that simple. So here, and we also have that rule that it's only for U.S. salaried folks. So if someone from UK, they will not see this message. Okay, cool little fun functionality, but really helpful, like things that you want to communicate globally to all your employees. So usually we use this during the time of mid-year announcement. So when you're launching an annual merit process that's going to affect everybody in a particular location, and then you put an announcement over here. All right, moving on. So, obviously we saw the hire process yesterday, and so there's some more information about that we need to continue. Yesterday there was a question on what's the difference between position and job requisition, so I decided to get the official definition from Workday community site. So position refers to the filled position or chair in which the employee is sitting. So when we create a position, yes, and generically when we're talking, even when it's not filled, we say, hey, this position is ready to hire in. Yeah, generically we speak that way, but if in Workday, like when you see the positions listed, in that column, it's actually just called the position restriction. Oops. So when you create a position where you're going to hire someone in or someone is going to transfer into, when you first create it, it's not filled, right? No one's occupying that. So at that time, it's position restriction. When someone occupies that position, it's called a filled position. And think of it as a chair, like everybody needs a chair to sit in, everybody needs a position to be in. And then when you transfer, that chair can either go with you if you're going to be in the same position but in a different department, or you're going to leave your old chair behind, and when you move to a new department, you're going to occupy a new chair. So the old position will be left behind, it will be empty now, because you're going to occupy a new position in the new department. Job requisition is when you're ready to hire it or to fill someone. So job requisition comes into play when you're recruiting. So if you're using Workday recruiting, then if you have configured the rule that, hey, every position, you must create a job rec. So before you could actually hire someone, you must create a job requisition. But that's not mandatory. Remember, that was a choice under Edit Tenant HCM we saw yesterday, that you could enable this based on certain rules. But the approved request to fill a position is called a job requisition. Okay. Steps, when we hired someone, so like we saw yesterday, first we had to create a pre-hire. When I started to hire someone, it said, hey, select someone who is already existing as a pre-hire or create a new one. So I created Bugs Bunny yesterday. So before we actually hired him, that record is called a pre-hire. And then at that time, I needed to provide a name and then the source and one piece of contact information. And then at that time, I had created a pre-hire record. You could also screen the pre-hires for positions. So you use that, you use the Workday task, edit pre-hire profile. You could also attach a resume to it. If you're using Workday recruiting, then you could identify who are going to be the interviewers and enter the status. If the company is not using Workday recruiting, then attach resume or reviewers, and the status will not be available. So this is only for companies that use the Workday recruiting module. Make interview recommendations. If the company is using Workday recruiting, they will also have the option as a step for the interview results. And then everybody, regardless of if they use recruiting or not, enter the compensation information under the proposed compensation tab. Some of the compensation package was defaulted in, right? Like yesterday, I hired him into the executive role, and we saw that the executive bonus type was defaulted in for that person. So it defaults in based on eligibility rules, and then you could edit it as well. I just wanted to call out the hiring process steps that are during the pre-hire process as well. Pre-hire is someone you track before employment. So they have not started, but you have that pre-hire data. And then the Workday recruiting application guides the pre-hire steps. You go from once you have the pre-hire, then you go through the interview steps, the assessment, the background check, and then finally an offer is made, and then offer is accepted. And so those are all part of the recruiting life cycle for the pre-hire. To begin the hire process, first enter the information for pre-hire, enter the contact info, and then that person gets added to a pre-hire. And then we select a pre-hire to actually hire against. But a pre-hire pool would be a collection of all the pre-hires, and you could assign that a bunch of pre-hires, and you could assign them to an org, or you could assign them to a location or a job family or job profile. So whoever the recruiter for it, they could select from those to do the hiring. We know he's an employee. First of all, there's no, it's just the name is showing up here. If he was a contractor, based on the sequence, that's been set, there might be a C here in parentheses. Like some companies put a C by default for contractors. Also, we see that he has an employee ID, right? And when I search for bugs, by default, it only shows me the employee record. If I search, if I modify my search and I click on all of Workday, I should see the employee record as well as the pre-hire record. See that both records are here. So remember in our first, and then when I went through the navigation, it's like, if you want to see all of the data, behind what you're searching, you must remember to click on all of Workday. So now everything that was associated with Bugs Bunny has shown up. And then here's the pre-hire record, and here's the employee record. If I was to say, hey, Bugs Bunny decided not to show up for his first day, and we needed to just remove that record, we would go to his hire business process and rescind. Then this record will disappear completely, but the pre-hire record will still show. So when you search for it, you can see if the pre-hire record exists versus the employee record. When we're hiring, here's the the information that's required: hire date, position, job profile, time type, like full-time, part-time. We also saw regular or contract, location, and then the scheduled weekly hours, which defaults on the location. Okay. So that's on the hiring process. I'm going to switch gears a little bit. I'm going to go back to our compensation and grades. So let me pull up that slide. So right now we're going through all of the setups that are required to fully hire an employee or fully transfer. So, obviously, before we hire someone, we need to make sure soup org exists, then job profiles, positions, and now we're talking about the compensation, which is the money part of our employee and we'll talk about that. Then I'll share some compensation and job-related reports. Then we'll go through some eligibility rules, compensation elements, and compensation grades. And then talk about compensation plan and package again. The key thing is here is whenever you create something, and I'll get into that on the next slide, it has to be part of the compensation package. So creating a plan by itself is not good enough. You must add it to the package as well. So I'll repeat that when we're creating a plan, but that because it's so important and it gets missed in real life so much because there's no automatic step that says, hey, now that you have created a plan, go add it to the package. You just have to remember to do that. Okay, what are compensation packages? Compensation package is a grouping of all the compensation grades and compensation plans. So like we saw, the person was in management level and he was in a particular management profile. And then we saw that he was in a executive bonus plan. So all of that together makes up what's called the compensation package. So this is a combination of all the compensation components in a package. And as we saw in the Bugs Bunny example, since he was hired into an executive job profile, by default, he had the executive bonus plan show up. So he got that based on compensation eligibility rules that enabled the system to default the components into the employee's compensation during the staffing activity. So because there was a rule that set up, that information got defaulted in. Yeah. And then obviously, when I just mentioned, when you create a plan, you must also add it to the package. So here's a screenshot of everything that's included as part of a compensation package. So in this middle part, it says it's talking about a salary plan. So that indicates, what type of salary you're on. There is a merit plan, for annual performance increases. So that's a merit plan. There's allowance plans as well for certain countries. Not all countries have them. There's bonus plans, and then there's hourly plans, unit salary plans, commission plans, stock plans, and period salary plans. And then you also have grades. If you're in the university system, you might have steps. But as corporations, you have grade profiles. So all of these items together, they make what's called a compensation package. And who gets these things is based on the eligibility rules. And you can set the rules using any of these criteria, such as job family, job profile, management level, organization, country, location, and many other criteria as well. So you could say, hey, if you're in India and that's your country and the employee's, home country or work location is India, then they should be on a allowance plan for housing or, whatever that allowance plan is. All of these elements everything in this package, it gets tied to what's called a compensation element. So each of these has a compensation element, which is linked on the right to our earnings code. And then if someone was using Workday payroll, then it would show up on the payroll side, like your salary has a compensation element called base salary. So that base salary has an earnings code called base salary as well. And then that information is sent to payroll. So the connection between the data in here and the data that's coming in the payroll system is the compensation element. It's not the HR consultant who sets up the compensation element. It's going to be someone on the finance consultant or a payroll consultant. But we just have to be aware that this is the compensation element is a link an earning code on the payroll side. And the compensation structure includes the compensation grades and plans, which are grouped into compensation packages. And plans can be set up as a percent plan or an amount plan or unit-based. And then you could override that particular percentage at the time of hire. So an example would be if someone's getting a car allowance, the car allowance can be a fixed amount. So someone in Europe, they might get a certain amount per month or per quarter. So when you set up that plan, you'll say that by default, you might have certain amount as default car allowance. If you're in UK, that amount might be different. So you have rules on a particular plan. But basically, this bullet is telling you that the plan could be set up as an amount, like in the allowance amount example, or it could be a percentage. If it's a bonus plan, so like an executive bonus or an engineering bonus or corporate bonus, those plans are typically based on percentages. And if it's a stock plan, so you're going to get a certain number of stock at the time of hire or at the time of merit review. Stock plans are based on units because you're going to get 1,000 shares or 500 shares. So those are unit based. So we'll see examples of that have been set up in the system. And the main thing is, even though they will default into the employee profile at the time of hire, you could override that particular amount. And compensation eligibility rules can control the compensation component for which employees are eligible. Compensation can be populated during staffing activities using defaults from position or through eligibility rules. And we saw that yesterday. So let me go back to the tenant and show some compensation reports. So some of them are compensation rule assignment. Like if you create a certain compensation rule, and then based on that rule, like something gets assigned to that, you could see that using the, you could look up all of the compensation rules and what they're associated with using compensation rule assignment. There's a compensation audit report as well. So this would be helpful if you have set up an eligibility. You're saying that, hey, allowance plan is only for people in Europe and Asia, but during time of new hire, you intentionally added a allowance plan to someone in the U.S., then that kind of data entry issues could be caught using employee compensation audit report, because they will say, hey, the allowance plan is eligible to say that this is only for Europe and Asia, but you had a U.S. employee in which you manually associated the allowance plan with. We'll see what's called a compensation spreadsheet. This has all of the compensation data for the employee or for the list of employees. Then there's also compensation changes report. There's a directory of job profiles. There's a job catalog and compensation grade. So I'm going to go ahead and enter the compensation report. Let's start with the compensation spreadsheet. So there's multiple ways to access particular reports. You could definitely enter their name of the report in the search bar, and that's the most common way to do that. You could also, if it's a report that you can use all the time, you could set it up as your favorite, and then you could access it from your favorites widget. And then you could also put it down your homepage or other people's homepage if it's something that they're going to need to access all the time. So I'm going to just type compensation spreadsheet. Remember, you could always abbreviate, but you cannot misspell. So I'm going to go to compensation spreadsheet. And this is compensation, and since compensation is always date tracked, we want to say, give me the compensation as of now, or give me the compensation as of a year ago. So there's compensation-related reports. There's always a date that you have to select because you want the data as of now or in the future or in the past. If it's not marked as required, then the system will default in today's date. So in that case, you don't need to select anything. In this report, it is asking for an organization, and then it says, hey, that particular organization plus any subordinate. So I'm going to select human resources. So we'll see the data for everybody in HR. And then if I select subordinates, so all of these suborgs that are available will show up. And then we click OK. Okay. So here in this report, it's going to give you all of the components of that employee. So real useful. It does have multiple lines of data. So you could make your own custom report from it. We're not going to get into that right now. That'll be part of our reporting session. And since there's a lot of columns, remember you could always hide the columns that you don't need using this functionality. I'm going to click on this icon. So I clicked on the export to worksheet, so we don't need that. But, well, let's put it down with that for you guys. Now I exported that data into what's called Excel worksheet. Now you could share this with another employee. So you're just sharing the output of the report. You're not actually sharing, you're not giving them the ability to run their own report. But if they want to share the data in an Excel-like version with somebody, you could, share it. So it's really cool functionality, but it does need to be set up. Like it's not there by default in all Workday tenants. You could download it into Excel, and you could see it in full screen mode. Let's go to the right, we'll see all of the components of the compensation package. So this person was in this particular position. He's part of the team member compensation package. There's a grade that's associated with it. And then there's a grade profile. Remember, profile allows you to localize the salary range. So even though this is the team member grade, but now the grade profile that's associated with him, since he's in Massachusetts, it's this one. So this one is for this grade and this grade profile in Massachusetts, the compensation range minimum, midpoint, and the maximum, we got 3 data points over here. This is the range. This person is also on, if, the total salary plus any allowances that he's actually getting is this particular amount, which is the same thing as his total base pay. So this tells you that he's not on any allowance plan, because in the US we don't have any allowances typically. So the base pay and so the value that you see in the total base pay field and the salary and allowance will be the same in the US. If you took someone who was not in the US and they were on an allowance plan, then these numbers would be different. And I go to the right, you can see other data points in this report. And this report is available in all tenants. This is like the reports I'm going to show you. These are Workday delivered reports. So market position, the primary compensation basis, the currency, the filter frequency. This is annual salary. You might see hourly in some cases. The compensation ratio, which is their particular salary other compensation-related data points. So base pay segment name, primary compensation segment, where they are as in the range of salary. There's range penetration. This is this is getting into the theoretical world of how we pay people. So the compensation analyst or the compensation manager, this data point is important to them, and it's defined in there. If you really want to get into what that is, besides Googling it, this is covered in more of in an HR business compensation class rather than like a Workday class. Workday will give this as a data point, but the idea behind range penetration is actually it's important to the HR partner. But the compensation plan, all the plans that this person is eligible for, they're listed here, and the plan's compensation element, and all the plan that has been assigned to them. So we see this as a list for all the employees. So they're on a bonus plan, team member, etc. And then I'll show you where this information is located on their profile. So this data is going to be under the compensation plan assignment. And if you remember from our navigation, I had mentioned that every time there's a link or there's a related action, you could click on that to navigate to another place. So I'm going to click on this and open the employee's profile in a new tab. And I want to show you where that information is located on directly from the UI. So we were looking at compensation data. So we go to the left-hand side in this left panel and under compensation. And go to compensation. So here we see that data point called total salary and allowance and base pay. And then the market positioning and the total comp. The compensation that we saw is listed here. And then the columns on the very right-hand side, like what was assigned to this employee, they're under the plan assignment. So he's on a salary plan. He's also on a merit. He's part of the merit plan, and he's on the bonus team member bonus plan, and he's on a bonus stock plan. And these are the targets. So anything that's under plan assignment is not a guaranteed income. These are plans that have been assigned to him with these targets, and he will get these based on how the company performs or what his manager thinks he or she deserves. So this is the assignment, things that are assigned but not actual. His actual salary data is here. Okay, so let's go on to a next report. Another one that's helpful is the compensation changes report. So when you want to see the number of changes, you should narrow it down using the start and the end date filter. So I want to say, I want to see all the changes that happened in 2020. And the changes could be in the future as well. So I'm going to put December 31st. We're still in 2020, right? So this feels like a really long year. Just want to make sure we're not in 2021 yet. This represents the period and the effective date. So that filter is not the effective date; it will be when they were made. And then this column over here is the effective date column. You could definitely have a filter or a parameter over here for effective date as well. But in this case, it was just the start and end date of that the time frame in which the changes were made. So we see Daniel had a proposed compensation change with an effective date, the time it was completed, and the reason for that compensation change. So in this case, he was simply getting hired. So he went from 0 to a particular number. So this was part of his new hire record. So he went from 0 base pay to a whatever was the new amount. And if we scroll down to this record, the one I just highlighted, this is actually a true compensation change. The process I ran was compensation change for Betty. And then in this case, we see that the reason was request compensation change adjustment. So an adjustment was done, and she went from 108 to 130K. So table report, but you could definitely copy the report, rename it with your initial, and then you could modify it. And we'll cover that in our reporting, but it's fairly simple and straightforward. Make a copy, and then you could modify the columns that you want in it. Yesterday we talked about all the stuff that's in the job catalog or the list of all the job profiles. So I want to show that in job catalog. So we see that there's 303 job family groups or families. So here's all the job family groups, and then the associated job profile, the ID, and if there was any kind of description that was put in at the management level. So this report is really helpful to what you have in the system already. And you want to see the grades. This grade is kind of hard to picture without actually seeing it. It's compensation grade. So I'm going to pick the objective grade. Just keep in mind, like here in this system, we see all of the grades they have, like a descriptive text name. A lot of companies just use both. So here's the information about a grade. So when it's effective, its name, the base pay element by default is always standard base pay because the grade is going to be based on the base pay. So we'll talk a little bit later on what is the grade, but it does, it's like a reference point for salary. Like this is a range. If you're an analyst, in a particular grade, that grade will tell you a clue of what that salary range is. And so it's important for categorizing or organizing compensation data. So we see that the compensation pay range for the executive grade, there's a minimum listed here. There's also other points, segment 1, top, segment 2, etc. And there's a midpoint. So that's the pay range. So every grade, if the company has entered or they ask you to upload it, So this would be the default base pay for the default currency. So for someone in US, this would be the range. But if you wanted to localize it, if you have executives in other countries, you go under compensation grade profile, and then you create a profile for other countries as well. So here's a grade profile for Australia, and then it has a separate range. And so on, if you scroll down, there'll be a grade profile for all the locations that you want this grade to be available in. So this is the navigation to an individual grade. There was also a grade profile. If I just, same thing, there was a compensation grade profile. So this allowed me to pull directly the grade profile data. The one we saw that was, which is grade for this profile is under the executive grade. But if you want to query it directly, you can get to it. So I'll just reiterate. I'm going to show you the grade first. I'm going to show you the navigation, and we spoke a little bit about what is the grade. So this gives you a reference point for the salary range for that particular position or profile. So I'm just going to repeat my steps. So compensation grade, and then you choose the grade such as executive. So when we query this, we see that there is a salary range, a pay range that's associated with this grade. And by default, this salary range is for the USD currency. And if you wanted to set up the same grade, but you wanted to be available in other countries or geographic areas, so obviously the range of that salary in the US is going to be different than what it is in Australia. So but because the grade is the same, it's an executive here and executive there, instead of creating a separate grade, best practice is to have a separate grade profile for other countries that you need this grade in. So grade profile is a geographic segmentation of the grade. So for all of the countries that you need this to be in, you can create a grade profile. And in one of the steps later on, I'll walk through how to create it. But it's basically these are the fields that you need to populate, and you have to put in a min, mid, and max. But right now, I just wanted to show you how to query it. This is question coming in at. I see the chat flashing, but I don't see any question there. That's it. Okay. Anyways, I'll get to it after. So let's switch back to my PowerPoint. So now we're going to get back into some of the definitions, and then I'll jump straight them in the tent. So we saw compensation, how it's tracked both at the enterprise-wide level. So it means this information is for everybody in a particular enterprise, and we also saw where it was located at the individual level. We saw the grades and plans are grouped in a compensation package, and this is all provides guidance reference to pay ranges. So the grades we saw, they're a guidance reference. So when we're hiring someone, as the hiring manager or recruiter, you want to know which grade you want to hire in, because then you know which salary range, what is going to be the pay range for that particular position. And then grade profiles allow for localization and provide types of pay components. So basically, how do you pay that person? Right on the grade definitions now, compensation grades provide guidance to the pay range. Profiles allow for localization. This is just a repeat of what I had on the other screen. Grade profiles allow you to assign a worker to a different compensation range than the default. Like we saw, someone in Australia or Brazil or any other country, as long as you have that job there and it's going to be the same grade, but you want a different salary range. So that's where the grade profile comes in. Compensation grades and defaults using eligibility rules or by attaching that compensation grade directly to the job profile. So yesterday when we created a job profile, there was a field that asked for the grade and the grade profile. So you could build an eligibility rule around that, or you could just enter that directly when you're creating a job profile. So it's better to, enter it directly there, unless you have some very complex rules. But there's definitely more than one way to do that. Like if you require more than one criteria, then compensation eligibility rules are a better option. So let me show that to you within a Workday tenant in a second. We touched, I showed you in the system on the employee profile all the different compensation plans that the employee was on. So we saw the plans assigned to a worker, but before you could assign them to the worker, you will have to create them, obviously. So let's talk a little bit about compensation plans. So every company will need a salary plan, and in the US, they would also need an hourly plan. And there's a couple of fields that on there that are good to discuss. So something called apply FTE %. So salary plan will say, hey, you take the salary, whatever's associated with it, but you want to consider the full-time equivalency factor. So display or calculate the salary, but consider the FTE percentage when displaying or calculating the salary. So if a person is half-time, then it will display the salary based on as though if they were half-time. If you do not have apply FTE checked and the person is working 20 hours, you will still display the full salary as though they're working full-time. Salary plans, you do want to exclude them from merit. So when you launch merit, it should not pick up the salary plan, because salary plan is, what the person's regular salary is. You have a separate plan for merit. And if you need to edit the salary plan, the task name is simply salary plan. Simply, once you set up a salary plan, you shouldn't really need to edit it, except, unless you're doing some testing. In contrast to if you have a bonus plan or a stock plan, they change every year, so you definitely need to edit those plans. But this is the default salary plan or the hourly plan. That's why I was saying you don't really need to edit it. If I come to compensation screen and we navigate down. So I was just talking about the salary plan. So here's the salary plan assigned to him as part of his hire process. And so the salary plan is just basically whatever his basic salary is. Okay? But here's merit plan. So he's on a 3% merit. time of merit process, he will get whatever his management thinks he deserves. But this is the merit plan. That's exactly for the purpose that you asked. Is for the annual merit-based salary increase. So companies usually have a once or twice a year. They would launch what's called a merit process, and the purpose of that is to review performance, and then based on that performance, the employees will get either a salary increase, or they might get bonus, or they might get stock, based on whatever that plan for the company is. But in order to make sure that the employee is part of that merit process, a merit plan needs to be assigned to the employee. So if Jake did not have this merit plan assigned, and when we launch merit, he will not be part of that merit process. So the most important part on the plan is the plan eligibility, and that's defined in the eligibility rule. So this salary plan is going to get automatically assigned for anybody who meets this eligibility criteria. So what is this criteria? I'm going to click on it, and this criteria says this is for salary compensation group, but it has some exceptions to it. And then in the description comment, it's good to put in some kind of description. But as far as the rule conditions, it says the job profile is salaried. That's the first condition. Location type is brand, apprentice. Well, actually, that's the exception. It says no. So as long as the profile is salaried and they're not a French apprentice and they're not in Stuttgart, then this salary plan will be assigned to the employee by default. When we create an eligibility, we'll notice that we'll say, hey, create compensation rule. We have to give some kind of description, comment, and then the rule condition. So in this case, they have used a condition called job profile is salaried. We could say something like location, and then we'll say location is equal to the value specified in this filter, or we could say value specified in another field, and then we'll enter the name of that field under the comparison value. But basically, the compensation rule defines what are the conditions that must be met for this plan we assigned to the employee. So now let's see the requirements for the stock. I came to a different employee. Okay. Let's see the requirements for him to be eligible for the merit plan. So I'm going to go into the merit plan. So the merit eligibility is listed here. There's the eligibility rule, and there's also a waiting period. So the eligibility rule says this person must be salaried and not fixed term. So I'm going to click in there. So this rule says this person will be eligible for the merit plan as long as he is in a salaried compensation group and he's not on a fixed term contract. And because these are hyperlinks, I can click on them and dig deeper to exactly what that condition is. So salaried compensation group is comprised of anybody who's in a job profile that's salaried and they're not a French apprentice and they're not in Stuttgart. This looks fairly straightforward, but when you're actually creating a condition and these are editable fields, it just looks value that you're going to specify in this particular filter, or you want that value to be coming from another field. So I know I was confused about this when I was first learning, but it's definitely easier than writing an SQL statement because it's all graphical in nature, and you just select the field. So after I review the plan, then we'll create our own compensation rule. So let me just quickly go through the slide. This is a salary plan slide. We already saw that in the UI. There's also an hourly plan for US. And then there's also what's called one-time payment, and there's a one-time payment plan, and there's allowance plan. And they're typically amount-based, but they could definitely be percent-based as well. But one-time payment and allowance, it actually makes sense for them to be amount-based. Navigation, we'll see that is just create, and then the type of plan, you'll say like create stock plan, or create plan, or create allowance plan. So there's multiple ways to start the navigation, and we'll see that in the system. One-time payment plan is similar to the other plans, but the difference is that this could be used for signing bonus, whereas merit is used like once or twice a year. But a one-time payment could be whenever management or HR wants to give you a bonus, they could do that through what's called a one-time payment plan. So the example that I'm showing you is a sign-on bonus. So this is for new hires. And then, you can have a default target amount, or you can, base it on eligibility rules. Another type of one-time payment plan could be a spot bonus. So if you do a great job and the company has a spot bonus plan, or they have a spot bonus program, then in order to give them that spot bonus, you will have a one-time payment plan set up called spot bonus plan, and then the management or HR would initiate that transaction. So on the Workday side, as consultants, we would be the ones who are setting up these plans for them to use it. So we would need to get the requirements from them. And then we're going to look into the compensation eligibility rules. They determine employees' eligibility for each compensation component during staffing. And eligibility is based on any combination of organization, job profile, location, commission, and many other factors. Okay, so now we'll look at some eligibility rules, and then we'll create some. So here's an example. We already looked at a couple of the eligibility rules, right? And so now we're going to create some of ours. Let me just share this with you first. So focus on this part right here. So we're going to create a compensation eligibility criteria, and we're going to create 3 separate eligibility rules. So we're going to base it on a job family. The relational operator we're going to use is any in the selection list, and we're going to specify that value within that filter, and we're going to say, hey, we want to select anybody who's in the job family of HR training. Okay. So it's going to be a pretty simple eligibility rule. It's just going to be based on job family, and then we'll create another one based on job profile, and then we could create one based on location hierarchy. So anybody who's within the EU, United Kingdom hierarchy. We'll create those eligibility criteria, and then we'll continue with those in the next session, like where are we going to actually use those rules that we create. So the navigation to create an eligibility rule is simply, and you could abbreviate, but you cannot misspell like I do. to abbreviate compensation, we're going to select create compensation eligibility rule. Give it a name. So this is going to be, you put your initials, so we know how to find it. And then you say job family equal to training. So just by looking at, when you're seeing a list of all the eligibility rules, if you put, just in the description what it is, then you'll know what this is referring to. You could put an elaborate comment in there as well, like why you need it. But I'm just simply going to just put the description in the comment as well. If you have an existing rule, sometimes that helps. You could just copy from that, and then you could modify it. And that makes it a little bit easier if you have multiple rows. But since we're going to start with a very simple one, we don't really need to copy from anyone. So we said this rule, you can say, hey, pick anybody who's in the job family of training, because then we're going to use this rule for someplace else. So the source field is going to be job family. So I'm going to type job family here. And we see that there's a lot of fields that are called job family. So we want, in our case, we want job family and job family group. If you click on those three dots, those related actions, it gives you the definition. So job family and job family group are always grouped together. And we want them, since we're doing compensation, so I wanted the one that's based on the, anything related to compensation. If it does that, then I know that this is the right field for me. And it's in the category of compensation eligibility and job creation. So I'm going to select job family and job group. Okay. Relation is going to be, since I'm only choosing HR training, I could just take, on the frequently used, I could say any in the section list. That gives me the option of going back and editing the HR training and adding other job families to it as well. So it gives just all the job families by group, or since I know which job family I want, I can directly HR training. And I could also add another one, job families by group. So perhaps I also want to grab someone from finance. Okay, so I've selected these two, and I click OK. So it's simple as that to make a simple one. Now, obviously, you could have additional rows that could be additional and or rows. I want to make another rule for based on job profile. So same thing, I'm going to say create comp rule, like create compensation eligibility rule. And let's see, RM job profile. So here I'm going to select job profile. And once again, if you just hit enter, you'll see a lot of fields that are named, or they have something related to job profile. find the one that says job profile, and then it says compensation. So it's this one. And if I look at the description of it, this will return the applicable job profile, and it's in the category of compensation eligibility and job and position. So select this one, job profile. This is also similar as well. Job profile primary, so you pick the primary job profile. But just to be consistent, let's just go with job profile compensation. Relational operator, once again, is going to be any intersection list, and I'm going to specify the value here. It's going to be the instructor job profile. And then I need to make one that's location-based. I'm going to create a compensation eligibility rule. I'm going to say my initial, and this one would be location equal EU-UK. So for some purpose, maybe I want to see that hey, if anybody's in either in the EU or European location hierarchy, or I'll make it a little bit more complex. I'll add another or condition in there as well. So anybody who's in the location hierarchy, or the country is, we'll pick some country, then apply this rule. What we'll do is we'll create a allowance plan, and then in order to be eligible for that allowance plan, they will have to meet this eligibility rule. So first I'm going to say location hierarchy. And then I'll add another rule condition. Let's say, or I want the work country. Maybe there's a work country that's not part of the European Union, but this plan will apply to them as well. And then I'll say they're equal to India. So anybody who's part of the European Union and India, then we'll create an allowance plan. And under the comments, I'll say to be used for allowance plan. We will create next session. And we'll give it an allowance plan name. We'll say free tuition. So, well, not a free tuition, but a tuition allowance. Any tuition to spell tuition. So we will use this plan next time. I mean, we'll use the eligibility rule in that plan. So I'm going to click OK. So right now, under rule usage, this is not assigned to anything yet. But once I assign this rule, under any eligibility rule, you can see where that rule is being used. Okay. So we are at the top of the hour. But next time we'll create some more plans. And like I said, the navigation is going to be pretty simple. Just like create allowance plan. You give it an effective date, sometimes something in the past, 01/01/2020. Let's make it an amount based. And I'm just going to start it off with my initial mission And I'm going to find the eligibility rule that I created, which was this one. And next time we'll add the allowance profiles and the default amount, so that at least I have it in the system. We'll click OK. All right, so we'll continue from there, and we'll see how the eligibility rule is used to default in certain plans at the time of hiring or during job transfers. So we'll actually do a job transfer, and we'll see that if we transfer someone from the US and we transfer them to India or UK, and now by default during that job change process,